It's no secret that healthcare has been a highly controversial topic in the United States. Pushes for affordable healthcare can be found during the time of Teddy Roosevelt, and they continue through government in Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. The United States' current healthcare system is a bit of a mess. It's filled with public and private insurers, which means that there are multiple entities purchasing and negotiating prices, causing chaotic rises in prescription drug prices. Prescription drug prices have continued to rise in the United States due to drug monopolies, the lack of enforcement regarding various antitrust acts, and the lack of a uniform healthcare system. One of the places in which drug monopolies are found is in insulin prices. Insulin is a drug most commonly used to treat type 1 diabetics. Type 1 diabetes is a chronic disease in which the body's immune system attacks the beta cells in the pancreas, the organ and cells that produce insulin. Insulin is a hormone that controls the body's blood sugar in the instance of consuming carbohydrates. Therefore, lab-made insulin is required to keep type 1 diabetics safe and healthy. Currently, there are 3 major corporations that are producing 96% of the global insulin supply. A market with such little competition is bound to have problems. As the control of the drug monopolies intensify, so do the out-of-pocket costs that patients have to pay. The current state of drug monopolies leave Americans with type 1 diabetes paying anywhere from $500 to $1,200 per month for insulin. There's no market to help drive down these prices, but if there was such a market, type 1 diabetics could be paying as little as $130 per person per year, rather than the thousands that are paid over the course of just a few months. Drug monopolies really shouldn't be happening, given the various laws that were passed in order to prevent monopolies. The Sherman Antitrust Act, Federal Trade Commissions Act, and Clayton Antitrust Acts are acts that were passed in the early 20th century that prohibit anti-competitive behavior, unethical business practices, and monopolies. All of these acts are still in use today. Insulin was discovered shortly after these acts were passed, so what changed? Manufacturers have begun to avoid punishment from antitrust acts by patenting updated formulas of the same drug. They refuse to sell a generic insulin regardless of the fact that their multiple patented formulas are essentially interchangeable. I interviewed David Sharon on the matter, an individual who has been buying insulin for his type 1 diabetic children for 11 years, and he says this.
These products are absolutely interchangeable. They're identical. I mean, there might be, I don't know the patent situation, but the product from one brand to another is the same. It is exactly the same. Well, I'd rather not have the government have to solve that problem. I'd rather have the free market solve that problem. But it doesn't appear to be working so far.
I then interviewed Willie Sharon, a fellow type 1 diabetic, on his thoughts. Willie is currently in his early 20s, which means that he will leave his parents' insurance shortly, once he turns 26. Although the fiscal responsibility did not dictate his choosing of his major, he admits that it did play a factor in choosing jobs and careers. Even under his insurance plan, medical bills can tend to pile up by the end of the year. Despite this, he has confidence that smaller companies will start selling cheaper insulin, thus driving the market back down. He sees a competitive market in the future. The United States' fractured healthcare system has also been a problem in prescription drug prices. The United States has never had a uniform healthcare system, which can be destructive to many Americans who need to pay medical bills. Healthcare facilities are publicly and privately owned, whether they be through nonprofit, government-operated, or for-profit operations. This fragmented system has caused Americans to cross the border, buy their prescription drugs in some other country, and then bring them back across the border to their homes. Several Minnesotans did that recently, which saves them $11,000 had they bought their medication under the United States healthcare system. One of the members of the group was quoted as describing the fiscal situation in healthcare as a huge epidemic. It's obvious that the United States has struggled with its healthcare system since the 1920s. The splurge of antitrust acts were a good move, but follow-up since their passing has been a little too relaxed. These acts ran a good run, but as major corporations begin to discover loopholes, so does the current policy need to discover new ways to cease these loopholes. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.